The recent Christmas holidays, I was lucky enough to be able to spend a good couple of weeks with my kids. Now, as most of you know, I don't have my kids full time. I share custody with the ex. And unfortunately, there's a geographical distance between us. So when I do have the opportunity to be present and physically there in their lives, I prefer to take the time to really remain present and grounded. And over these holidays, my daughter wanted to spend significant time playing with Lego. In fact, we spent hours with Lego, creating imaginary restaurants, building princess castles, reshaping things so that all the colored blocks were together. It was genuine, it was simple, and it was fun. And it was during this time that something struck me. I had this realization that there is something quietly powerful about Lego. A single piece on its own does not look like much. It doesn't do much. It's small, it's unremarkable, and it's easy to overlook. In fact, it can be hard to find. But when you place it alongside another piece, and another, and another, suddenly something begins to take shape. Not all at once, not perfectly, but steadily, over time. And before you know it, what started as a jumbled up mix of tiny bricks has suddenly become something meaningful, something creative, something solid, and something that we are proud of. That's not just a lesson in play. It's a lesson in life. Now, I don't know if you know, but on January the 28th, it's International Lego Day. So I thought, what better time to use Lego as a metaphor for how growth really works? It's not through massive overnight transformations, but through small, intentional actions that stack together over time. The psychology of small wins, habit stacking, incremental gains. This is one of the most overlooked keys to lasting happiness, and Lego sums it up perfectly. You're listening to The Happiness Hack with Tim Coulson, the podcast about making sense of the psychology of being human and turning it into practical, real-life tools that we can use to live with more clarity, compassion, and everyday happiness. And today, we're talking about Lego. So let's get into it. When we look at someone else's success, their confidence, or their calm demeanor, we often assume they started off with better materials or with better motivation, better discipline, clarity. But most of the time, what we're seeing is not a single big breakthrough, but the results of many small pieces coming together and placed there consistently. Lego teaches us something important here. You don't start with the finished model, but you do start with the end in mind. You start with one small piece, and then another, and then another. And sometimes you realize you've made a mistake and you need to pull it all apart and rebuild it differently. Now, our growth works the same way. Our brain does not change through dramatic gestures. It changes through repetition, through small behaviors repeated often enough that they become familiar, safe, and eventually automatic. This is how our habits form. This is how our identity shifts. And perhaps most importantly, this is how our confidence builds. One small action might not feel impressive, but small actions over time compound. In psychology, we know that behavior change is more successful when it feels achievable. When your intrinsic motivation and your self-efficacy are at their peak, then you believe that you can achieve. It comes back to that age-old saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. When something feels too big, our brains and our nervous systems resist. It perceives the change as a threat rather than opportunity. Small habits, little steps, they feel safe. They feel easy enough to repeat. This is where habit stacking becomes so powerful. Now, habit stacking is the idea of attaching a new, small habit to something that you already do. James Clear spoke about this in depth in the really seminal book, Atomic Habits. If you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend you do, because just like adding one Lego piece to a structure adds a little bit more, it's not that you are ever starting from scratch. You are always building onto something that already exists. So, a small habit stacking might start with taking deep, mindful breaths whilst you brush your teeth, or taking a moment of reflection and gratitude while you're making your morning coffee, or doing some stretching when you stand up from your desk. Individually, none of these actions seem significant, but together, the progress that you make is not insignificant. Together, they begin to reshape how you experience the day. We've spoken in depth in the last few episodes about motivation, meaning, and momentum. This is how our momentum builds, not through intensity, but through consistency. Because incremental gains create sustainable change. It's a concept used in performance psychology, and elite sport absolutely understands it. Every incremental gain is a small improvement. Every small improvement across multiple areas adds up to significant change. I love the quote by Jerry Rice, the wide receiver, Hall of Famer. Today I will do what others won't, so tomorrow I can do what others can't. How great is that quote? You don't have to go into the gym for 20 hours out of the 24. You just have to go to the gym. Because today I will do what others won't, so that tomorrow I can do what others can't. If you improve 10 areas of your life by just 1%, the overall impact is enormous. Now, Lego reminds us of this. They're built on this very foundation. You don't have one perfect piece. You need many small pieces placed with intention, placed with care. Some won't fit the first time. Some won't make sense why you're placing them there. They may need adjusting, but that doesn't mean that the build is failing. It simply means that the build is unfolding. And this perspective matters because so many people abandon growth too early. We look at the half-built structure and assume it's not working. No Lego build looks impressive halfway through. Progress is rarely aesthetic in the middle. One of the most underrated lessons that we can draw from Lego is the attention to detail. When we rush it, pieces don't fit properly. You force them, the structure may weaken, but when we slow down, pay attention, then things begin to lock into place. The problem that we often face is that we spend so long paying attention, thinking it through, that we don't go ahead and build the momentum. So there's nothing wrong with moving forward. There's nothing wrong with taking it apart and rebuilding it again. The same is true for our habits and our personal growth. The small details matter. They are the time of day we choose, the language we talk to ourselves with, the environment that we place ourselves in. And these details influence whether something sticks or something falls apart. But each time it falls apart, that's not a sign to stop. That's a sign to rebuild, to regain progress, to move forward with deliberate, repeatable actions. Because each time you follow through on a small promise to yourself, you build trust, not confidence in the theory, but confidence in the practice. Your brain learns. It's the belief that is foundational to resilience and self-efficacy. Now, there's one important and really beautiful thing about Lego that we've overlooked at the moment, and that's you don't have to follow the instructions. Sure, we can get a really expensive Millennium Falcon Lego piece and build it exactly to the script. But how much of our joy, how much of our happiness comes from digging through the container and creating something unique? We don't have to follow those instructions. Children understand this intuitively. And the time I spent playing with my daughter reminded me of this. She rarely built with an exact model in mind. She mixed sets, she repurposed pieces, and they were the pieces that created something that was never intended, but was truly satisfying to be involved with. Adults, on the other hand, we tend to get caught up in those details, and we often believe that there is only one right way to achieve the outcome. But that belief prevents us from growing, because we believe that there is only one right way to grow, one correct path, a fixed blueprint we must follow. But real life rarely follows instructions. The psychological flexibility to adapt, experiment, and respond to change, it's a strong predictor of our ongoing well-being. When we believe growth must look a certain way, we become rigid, we become fixed. But when we remain open-minded, when we allow creativity to enter the room, we stay engaged. You are absolutely allowed to build your habits in a way that works for you. You are allowed to change course. You are allowed to pull pieces apart and rebuild. That is not failure. That is flexibility. And this is where the Lego lesson comes in. Because happiness is not built in one moment. It is assembled. It is built through small moments of present, small choices that align with our values, small acts of care towards ourselves and others. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need enough consistency to keep placing. When motivation starts to wane, our habits carry us forward. When our habits begin to wobble, our meaning keeps us anchored. So when your progress feels slow, I want you to trust that the structure is still forming. This is your happiness hack for the week. I want you to think of Lego pieces. Even better, if you can go into the cupboard and dig out that old box of Lego. Choose one small action that feels almost too easy. Something you can do on even your hardest day. Look at it and attach it to something that you already do. Don't aim for impressive, aim for repeatable. Ask yourself, what is one small piece I can add today, then tomorrow, then the day after? Over time, these pieces start to form something truly meaningful, truly creative, truly worthy of working towards. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen perfectly, but it will happen steadily. Because real change is not about giant leaps. It's about small pieces placed with intention. And if you're ready to place another small piece in your progress and move forward with some intention, why not book a session with me? tim-coulson.com, tim-coulson.com. I am truly excited to see the personal growth that all of you are going to experience. Remember, one small habit, actioned repeatedly, is going to create something magnificent. As always, remember, the day is what you make it.